Hello, everybody. Welcome to our August edition of our Content Marketing Meetup. I'm thrilled you can join me today for our second session, our second meetup session. And today we'll be talking about 9 reasons why we need content and how to produce content when you have little to no budget. So thanks again for joining me. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here and we'll jump straight into the presentation for today. There we go. So you should be able to see that up on your screen there. So as mentioned, Jason Dutton Smith, All About Content Marketing is my company, and primarily what I do is custom publishing. I work with travel brands on producing digital magazines, and here's just a quick sample of some of the brands that I've worked with around the world. Although I'm based here in the US, obviously from Australia originally, I do work with clients across both countries. But today's presentation is going to be on 9 reasons you need content and how to produce content with little to no budget. I've separated these two topics out for a particular reason. We need to understand the why before we can start on the how. So when we understand why we need content and the type of content we need, then we can start looking at how we can produce it and hopefully on little to no budget. At the heart of every successful marketing campaign, content plays a central role. There's always a key role for content in every marketing campaign. Content is the message that connects you or connects us with our audience. It helps us stand out from the crowd. I often talk about in my presentation standing out from the crowd, and I refer to it as what's your pink shirt or find your pink shirt. That means I'm talking there, the internet is saturated and cluttered with information. So to stand out from the crowd, put a bright pink shirt on and grab some attention. And that's what we want to do with our content. We want to grab that attention away from our competitors and draw our readers into our own brand. The problem with a lot of content, and when it comes to content marketing, is very few businesses have the time, the money, or the resource to actually devote to content marketing or to content and strategy and so forth. And that's understandable, especially in this current climate that we find ourselves in amongst COVID. So, but why do we need content? Well, let's look at the why before we get started here. So I've put together 9 different reasons why you need content. I won't spend a huge amount of time on this, but I think this is important to understand. And content obviously comes in many different types and forms. So here's just a quick sample of the different types of content that are available out there. Website content or website copy will be probably the first thing that jumps to mind, but everything from videos and podcasts to ebooks and case studies, these are types of content. The key here is finding the type of content that works for you and resonates with your audience. Now, that could be something very different between the brands. It could even be something very different between the products you offer within your brand. But the key is to find that trigger point with your customers and find out what works with them. And if it doesn't work with them, that's okay. We just find another type of content to promote or a different channel. So the thing with is that it's cost effective. So content marketing and traditional marketing are obviously 2 different things. By traditional marketing, I'm referring to advertising you may see in a newspaper or a magazine. Content marketing, usually I'm referring to content that you will find online. The online content, when compared to traditional marketing, can save you up to around 62% in cost. So it's quite cost effective. And the other good thing about the online content is that if you produce evergreen content, evergreen being there's no expiry date on it or it's not today's news, it has long-term gains and it has longevity. So when you put a piece of content up on your website, it's designed to last for a long time. It's designed to attract eyeballs to that web page for a long time. And what we're doing is we're drawing brand interaction with our customers, even if they're not looking for us. I talk about this often and I'll touch on it again a little later. But when you're looking at Google search results, you type in a question, what's the nutritional value of avocados? You're going to get, 2 million search results back, right? Each of those search results, everything belongs to a brand or a company or some kind of service out there. So what our job as content marketers and strategists is to do is to ensure that they interact with our brand and not somebody else. Even if they're not looking for us, we want to get them onto our brand so we can draw them in and grab their attention. And obviously, good content keeps readers on your site as well. The other thing about good content, and I guess if we touch on the definition of content marketing, it's creating useful, relevant, and engaging content that not only builds trust and authority, but allows people to buy into us as well before they buy from us. So the more content, the more good content that we can put out there, the more we can position ourselves as an industry leader with that useful, relevant, and engaging content. We're going to start building trust and authority with our audience. And this is key. We want them to trust in us as the industry leader, regardless of the industry that we work in. It's very important, though, we don't want to use our content, when we're talking about content marketing, we don't want to do a poorly disguised sales pitch. We have channels and we have means and ways of doing that as marketers, but as content marketers, we don't want to be a poorly disguised sales pitch. We want to draw them in and give them why they need to buy from us, why they should trust us with their purchase decision. And a recent Adobe survey said that 95% of consumers say that brand content builds trust, which is fantastic. And we're also, by doing that, by building that trust, and we're informing our audience, we're being part of their buying journey. So last month I touched on the buying journey, and there's 3 stages of the customer buying journey. The first stage is awareness, the second stage is consideration, and the third stage is decision. So our job as strategists and marketers is to ensure that we show up in all 3 stages of our customer's buying journey. If we can do that, what we do is keep our brand top of mind and we give them a reason to remember us. It's important to give them a reason to remember us because, as I said before, that the website is so saturated with information. We need to find our pink shirt and we need to give them a reason to remember us so they come back and transact with us. And with over 20 online searches on average before any kind of interaction or purchase intent is made, this is why we need to produce really good content and be part of their buying journey. And we all know about SEO exposure and the importance of it. And there's no one out there who has a brand or a company that does not want to be on the first page of Google search results, right? We know a couple of key things, mainly around keyword stuffing equals penalty today. The last kind of 5, 6, 7 years now, Google has done a lot of changes to their algorithm, and they've done a lot of updating. In the quickest and in its most simplistic form, the search results returned in Google are what Google deems as the best web page that answers the question. So by answering their question, and before they even know what to ask, which is key, and with the best content that we can put out there, that will give us the better chance of SEO exposure in search engines. And obviously, the more exposure we have, the more we can increase our site traffic as well. So high quality content gets rewarded. It will start showing up in Google. It will start showing up in the different stages of the buyer journey. It will start putting our brand top of mind, and it will encourage our other metrics that we like to use, such as sharings and likes and comments and so forth. So there's real long-term benefit of content and content marketing that's delivered over a long period of time. And I'll just as a comparison to SEM, which is search engine marketing, where AdWords, Google AdWords as an example, another form of SEM is Facebook boosting or Facebook exposure. That is all very instant gratification. That's getting someone on your site in an instant and grabbing them on there. It's a very short-term win. It's instant gratification. And it's great. And we can obviously still, by having the right landing pages that we push them into, we can still capture them in our own ecosystem. But the difference there is that it's very instant and it's quite expensive when compared to content marketing on your website. It's going to deliver long-term benefit down the track. That content, if it's evergreen content and it's well written and crafted and it's showing up in Google, that's going to give you a lot more attention in the long term over many months than it will in the short term. And obviously, this is going to generate some leads. So with content marketing, our job is to talk with the customer, not at them. By that, talking at a traditional advert where it's a product, a brand, and a price, and a book now or call us now, whatever the call to action may be. With content marketing, our job is to convince them of the why. Why do they need to interact with our brand? Why do they need to purchase from us? Why do they need our product or service? That's what our job is. So if we nurture them into a warm lead, we can then use our high quality content to convert them. This will also differentiate ourselves from our competitors, and again, we'll be in all stages of the buyer's journey. And the more we do that, the more chance we can build loyalty and trust, the more chance we've got of converting them into on our own website. And we're also going to increase our direct sales. So organically, if all of those steps line up, organically our direct sales should increase, right? But there's another comparison here, or another argument to be made for direct sales. So with my 20 plus years of travel background, I'll use the example of, let's say, Expedia or Booking.com. If you have a product or a service, whether it's a tour or a hotel or whatever it may be, you need to be in Expedia and Booking.com to get the best exposure. And of course you do. The problem there is that a lot of these third-party websites, they take some pretty hefty commission rates, sometimes 20 to 30%, even more in some cases. So you're giving away a lot of your income to grab that sale. Now, of course, I'm not saying don't do it, because it's obviously much needed, especially in the slow times. But if we can use our content to draw people away from the Expedias and the Booking.coms and into our own channel, we can bring them directly into our own ecosystem. So hopefully they'll transact with us, which will, by decreasing our costs, e.g. not paying out commissions, we're going to increase our revenues. That's one benefit there. The other benefit is instead of them signing up, booking through Expedia and then signing up and then going to the Expedia database, we now have a chance to bring them directly to our site and get them to sign up with our database. We're better off, obviously, having them in our database so we can market to them and cut out the middleman and boost our direct sales. And content is obviously incredibly versatile. So I use the Gremlin. What I'm pertaining there is the cult classic movie of the 80s, Gremlins. That cute little gizmo character, you put a drop of water on him and he just pop, 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 he explodes, right? He multiplies. So I use that as an example in my talks to repurpose content. So use one piece of content and try and push it out to other pieces of content as well. So can you, this video that I'm recording right now as an example, and put that as a podcast? Or can you transcribe, put it onto a blog? Is there other ways that we can push it out there through our different channels, whether it's YouTube or whether it's social media, so on and so forth? So the whole idea is to take your content, repurpose it into different channels. What we're going to find there is that some channels may do really well for you and other channels simply may tank. And that's okay. What we need to find out is what resonates with our audience and how do we keep doing that to keep driving attention, grabbing their attention into our brand. And the last point to make here is people buy into you before they buy from you. So I say this quite often, people buy into you before they buy from you. We need to be a trusted brand. The whole purpose of marketing is about building relationships with our customers, whether it's potential customers, retaining our current ones, or trying to win back customers that have tried us and left us for whatever reason in the past. So if we can get people to buy into us, and by that I mean with some great content, some very informative information, we're going to build that authority, we're going to build that trust, we're going to be the authority of our field. We can get them to then purchase from us because they're going to trust us. They're going to be provided them with solutions and answers and all kinds of stuff. So if we can get them to buy into us organically, they will most likely buy from us as well. I just want to show you two really quick examples of two companies that do this well. And here's an example from Home Depot. So with Home Depot, which is the equivalent to Bunnings in Australia, they and I use these guys as examples quite often because I think their content marketing is just fantastic. They create these videos like this and on how to paint a room, and they go through everything. This is a 10+ minute video of what you need to do and understand to paint a room. So how to treat the walls before you paint, how to fill in the holes of a wall, what kind of sanding paper do you need, how do you need to clean the walls and prep them, how do you do your first coat, your second coat, so on and so forth. So over 10 minutes, they give you all the information and the education you need to confidently go ahead and paint a room. Now, aside that very small logo in the bottom right you can see there, you won't see anything about Home Depot until right at the end of the video. So what they're doing here is that they're getting people to buy into them before people buy from them. So you can see the correlation that I'm trying to make there. I've got one more quick example to show you as well, which I think is a really great example, and this is Dove. I'll keep this one up, I'll keep the volume up on this one because it's just music, but we all know the brand Dove. We all know the type of products that they sell. Everything from soaps and shampoos and all kinds of beauty products. It's just endless of the products at the end that they sell. So what they're trying to do here is they showed that, beauty queen at the beginning, but what they're showing here is, and they're using and engaging kind of relationship so people can relate to the video. They're showing all steps of life, all different shapes, sizes, races, everything. And what they're saying here is that beauty is everywhere. Everywhere you look, there is beauty. And everywhere there is beauty, there is Dove. There is a Dove product to help you. So you can see across here, there's been no reference of Dove at this stage, except for a very brief at the end. And now they bring in their brand at the very end. So this is like a really good example of how two companies use content marketing to help sell their product and their service. Now, I know what you're thinking there, and I'm thinking the same. These guys have 7-figure budgets. They have seemingly unlimited resource and funds and people to actually produce all these like awesome bits of content nonstop. Totally agree. So what happens if we don't have a 7-figure marketing budget? Wouldn't that be nice? A lot of us don't, and a lot of businesses simply do not have that type of budget. So that's what we want to talk about now. Now we understand the why we need content. Let's talk about how can we produce content without a big budget or simply no budget at all. So let's jump into it. So work colleagues. I was going to take a moment and speak about our work colleagues because no one knows the business better than the people that work in the business 24/7. There's 40+ hours a week put into the business, and every department or every person, regardless of their job, they know what the pain points are across the business, not just from a business perspective, but from a customer perspective as well. So what we can do here is if we understand the pain points, we can create content for our customers on our website to help answer those questions even before they know what to ask. But we can also help internally by creating content for an intranet that people can refer to for best practices or how-tos or whatever it may be. So there's lots of different ways that we can use content in our own work environment. And to do that, we need to speak to people. And I mean everyone from the receptionist to the CEO, everyone above, below, and in between. Everyone has a touch point with a customer or a product or service along the way. Even our finance people, they have, they understand what the pain points are. And when it comes to like the financial, not just the systems, but how people pay and so on and so forth. So a good way to speak to our work colleagues is by setting up a Google questionnaire form. Now I've got a link in here. I will also, as part of this video, I will separately put this presentation into a PDF so you can click on the links that I have in here as well for more information. Google questionnaire forms are free to use. They're very simple, very quick and easy to put through, and you can push them out there, and you can also make them anonymous, which is great. So what we want to do here is we want to ask some tough questions, and we want to deal with facts. So we have to be very careful of the way that we form our questions and how we craft our questions, and we want to ensure that we're asking the right things so we don't just get a gripe back. And we also need to remember this is not a vanity exercise. We're just here to deal with facts and to help solve pain points. That's what our job here is to do. Once we have these results, we can then use them to tweak the levers of our content strategy and go forth and update as needed. So that's talking to our work colleagues. But let's not forget about our customers. An even bigger asset than our fellow work colleagues is obviously our customers. They pay the bills, right? The good thing about us or speaking with our customers is they will give us the good, the bad, and the darn right ugly, and they won't be shy about it. So there's two ways that I'd encourage you to do this. The first way, and I have links to both of these suggestions, as you can see here, is an online survey. So that's a link to SurveyMonkey. It's a free service, very similar to Google questionnaire forms, just in a bit more professional kind of format. And it's a great tool to use if you want to speak to your customers. Again, it's not a vanity exercise. You need to ask very pointed questions, and you need to do it across a broad range of people. And that goes from our focus group as well. So focus group, just to touch on that, is they're normally a 1 to 2 hour session where you actually bring a group of people, around 8 to 10 or 10 to 12 people in a room for 1 to 2 hours. You normally got to bribe them with pizza and beer, but that's okay. But what we want to do is gather valuable insight. Now, there's plenty of companies that will run a focus group for you that will run thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands. If you can afford that, that's, go for it. It's a great way to do it, but it can be actually done in-house as well. The link that I have on the screen there for focus group will actually take you to an Eventbrite page where they talk about how to conduct an in-house focus group and all the tools and necessary understanding that you need. The good thing about focus groups is that if you're seeking backing for a project, or you're trying to get something off the ground, or you're trying to get the CEO or C-suite buy-in for a new project, by doing a survey or a focus group and collecting this data, you're providing evidence of a need or demand that you're trying to put forward. So use these to convince people that, this is what's needed. Here's the data. This is why it's needed. So this is a great way to do that as well. And I'm going to touch on syndicated content. So you may or may not have heard of syndicated content, but what it is, it's content that has been published previously. It could have been published anywhere at any time. Generally, syndicated content will be evergreen content, meaning that there's no expiry date. It's not today's news. So it can be easily sourced, and it's a cost-effective way as well. So the thing with content is that it can be very flexible. You can use it when it's needed. So you don't have to, purchase or source it today and put it up today. You can put it up in a month or two. It doesn't matter. Even though it's been previously published, there's a lot of talk, obviously, about duplicate content and so forth on Google. According to Curata, between 15 to 20% of content is recommended to be syndicated. And that's for a couple of different reasons. First, it'll give you a third-party endorsement. It's not the brand saying, hey, XYZ. It's the third party saying XYZ. So it's giving another opinion in there. And even though it's been published, it may have been published online, but it could have been published in a newspaper or a magazine article. It could have just been produced in a podcast and nowhere else. So you're taking a transcript of that podcast to turn into a blog. There's lots of different ways you can syndicate it. So just because it has been published previously, it doesn't mean that it's going to be necessarily duplicate content on your website. And there's ways to obviously deal with that. If you have any questions about that, feel free to email me at any time. There's canonical tags that we can put in the background, pointing to the original source, all that type of stuff. So it's a, excuse me, it's a cost-effective way. It's usually free, or at the most, it's low cost anyway. Another great way is to invite contributors. So this is going to do a couple of things. in our personal lives, even our professional lives, we're always surrounded by like-minded people, right? Exactly what are we doing today? We're all like-minded when it comes to content marketing and content in general. So by finding like-minded people and asking people to guest contribute in any type of form, it could be interviewing them on this video. It could be in a podcast. It could be asking them to write an article to go up on your website, or it could be taking their article in a syndicated sense and putting it up on your website with attribution and a link back to them as the author source. So there's different ways to invite contributors to help. And this is going to do two great things for you. One is a third-party endorsement. And two, it's going to bring you a new audience that you may not have necessarily had before. So inviting a contributor, what that will do is they will send it out to their audience. And what that is doing is introducing your brand to an audience who may not have heard of you yet. And it's now for people to come into your brand and your ecosystem and for you to capture them. Now, it's a two-way street with contributing, of course. So your audience will be introduced to them. So you need to be careful who you interact with and make sure they are a trusted source. And sometimes they're competitors, sometimes they're not. And that's up to the individual. But by inviting them, you're going to get exposure to a new audience and you'll get that third-party endorsement, which is really important. And even though I'm going to talk here about white paper, what I'm talking about is actually gated content. So gated content is content sits behind a wall. What that means is if you've ever gone to a website for some more information and they say, we will give you this, this 20-page document on how to whatever, give us your name and your email address and we'll email you a link to download the copy. That's gated content. So you have to give them something before they give you whatever you're looking for. This serves a couple of really great purposes. The biggest one, obviously, is that it will bring people into your database. This is a great way to build up your database and nurture those warm leads. If they're going to invest or if they feel confident enough to give their details to you to go into their database, knowing that they're going into your database in exchange for some information, you've already got a warm lead. And then obviously there's lots of things you can do with that lead afterwards. But white papers are probably the most common type of gated content out there. There's all types of content. Basically, any content can be gated, of course, but white papers is a pretty popular one. And what white papers do is they provide a solution to a problem. They also will highlight your brand expertise and cement you as the authority in the field. Now, white papers can be as short as, 1 to 3 pages. It could be as long as 20 or 30 pages or even more, depending on what it is, what the topic is. And of course, like any kind of reference to content, you write enough content to answer the question and get the information out there. No need to waffle on and make something super long just for the sake of it. People will be just as happy to give you their details for real strong, hard information that's only over 1 or 2 pages versus 20 pages. So there's no hard and fast rule there. But if you're writing a white paper, there's 3 things that you need to answer. What was the issue? How did you solve it? What was the outcome? Those are the 3 primary questions that need to be answered in a white paper. Now, you can do this from your own brand side by just pushing it out there, or try and connect with a customer or a company that you've dealt with where you've been a consultant or a client or they've used your product or service, and ask them if you can use them to build a white paper based on your product. So again, you get that third-party endorsement, and it's just a good way to show your expertise and authority and the outcome that you've produced for customers, which is obviously what anyone who's looking to work with you is wanting to know. What is that outcome? You can really highlight it there. And I touched on this before, gremlin your content. So there's my favorite little gremlin dude, and turn one piece of content into many. The more eyeballs we can attract with our content, obviously the more chances of building that trust and authority, and obviously the more chances of conversion down the track. It's also a great way of refining our content strategy and our efforts and saving time and money. So if we have one awesome piece of content, turn that into a couple of different pieces of content, push them out there. As I explained before, see what resonates with customers over whether there's one thing over another. And it also will save you a lot of time and money, obviously, because you don't have to create 4 pieces of content now, individual pieces of content. You can turn one thing into 4 things. So it's a great way to gremlin your content, repurpose. And feed the content beast. So one of my last points here, the beast I'm talking about, with all due respect, I'm talking about our readers and our audience and our customers. So they're always hungry. And by feed the beast, I mean feed them information. They're always hungry and are looking and searching for information. The more information we can push out there and the more we can answer their questions, even before they know it, the more we will be rewarded. Let's remove those pain points, answer their questions, and keep feeding the beast, because the beast is always hungry. So I refer to that often, with all due respect, but we do need to feed the beast and get as much useful, relevant, and timely content that we can out there to help them make a purchase decision. And my last point here is when we create content, we need to create content without agenda. So what I mean here is that we need to be less promotional, but more informative. So content marketing, as I explained earlier, is not about a hard sell, it's a soft sell. It's about warming up that lead. It's about nurturing them along in their personal buyer's journey and talking with them, not talking at them. So, this is a practice that I use with any piece of content that I put out there. I always ask myself these 2 questions. Does this focus on the customer, and is it answering their questions? If it's a resounding yes to both of those questions, then we've done our job, and push that content out far and wide, multiply it, put it in all different channels, see what works, see what resonates with our audience, and keep tweaking our strategy and doing the good work. So less promotional, more informative. That's content without agenda. So a couple of key takeaways from today's presentation. Good content, as we just talked about, anticipates our customers' needs. And great content separates you from the noise. So remember, find your pink shirt. What is your pink shirt? How can you differentiate yourself from your competitors? We don't want to be equal to our competitors. We want to be better. We need to be creative, build that trust, and be the authority. If you do all of that, you will be rewarded at the end. It may take a little while to come through, but they will remember you and they will transact with you. Form an alliance with like-minded people. Try and get that third-party endorsement. Try and tap into new audiences as you go. And remember, one point over more than anything, people buy into you before they buy from you. It's a really important point there. It's not about us pushing out the message that we want. It's about us pushing out the message our customer wants. What do they want to hear? How can we get them to buy into us and trust us and see us as the authority so they can then buy from us? A little quote I like to put out there in all of my talks is, you didn't fail, you tested. I think it's sometimes as content strategists and content marketers, we're a little harsh on ourselves if something doesn't work. So our job is to not be harsh on ourselves. Our job is to weed out what works and what doesn't. So to do that, we need to test. So test different types of content, test different channels and verticals that content is presented in, test different ways of promoting the content as well. So not just through social media. Can you amplify it through different channels? Or there's companies out there that amplify content, such as Taboola and Outbrain and companies like that. So just remember, don't be hard on yourself. You didn't fail, you tested. Tweak the levers of the strategy, move on to something else, and find what resonates with the audience and what actually works. So with that, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for making it to the end of this video. I hope I've been able to share some information and knowledge with you, able to spark some ideas, and during this crazy time of coronavirus, where budgets are tight and the purse strings are not as loose as they used to be, hopefully I've given you some ideas today anyway. Please contact me at any time. Feel free to reach out to me. Here's my email address and my website. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Follow me on Twitter. And to see a full transcript of this video, I've got a link in there if you're looking at the PDF to go to the website where I have the full transcript of this video as well. And I also have previous webinars included on that page also. So thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. Please stay safe out there. And next month, please join me again where we'll be talking about the return on investment for content. It's a very poignant point for a lot of companies, especially the bigger the company, the more important it is. But we're going to talk about how we can measure ROI of our content and the different ways and forms of doing that. So I hope you can join me next month. I'll send out some details soon, and I appreciate you joining me today. Have a good day.